Hello, Your Excellency. Why is this video being made?
Because recently Bishop Dolan in his bulletin, Sunday bulletin, attacked the thesis which all of the priests of the seminary hold to, and which is held to also by the Roman Catholic Institute, of which there are 19 members now. And this comes at the end of many other attacks that have been going on in Cincinnati for quite a while now. A number of months ago, I heard him in a sermon refer to those priests who were observing in their states the lockdown measures that were being imposed on churches as girls. That is, that they were they lacked courage. They were like girls, and he used that term from the pulpit, which I thought was awful, frankly, to attack clergy in front of the people in such a sarcastic and nasty way. Those clergy in those states, and I know two of them personally, had to do that as part of the law. They would have gotten into trouble if they had not. And one of them said to me, Bishop Dolan did not offer to any money for my lawyers or any money to bail me out of jail or various other things. That this was just simply a comment that was made. And then I heard, somebody told me recently that he said that those priests who do not speak out against the Great Reset and various other, the COVID issues that he's talking about a great deal now, that they lacked courage. They did not have courage. And then someone told me, and I think it's on good authority, that he characterized the thesis in this way, that the Novus Ordo is the octopus, and the thesis that we hold to is one of the tentacles of the octopus. And that is a very serious accusation, because it says that myself and all of the clergy of the seminary and all of the Roman Catholic Institute adherents are people who are attached to the Novus Ordo and are really doing the work of the Novus Ordo. These are outlandish and very severe accusations, and I feel that I need to say something regarding these criticisms and this lashing out against other clergy. It's a source of irritation and surprise to me, because we have lived on peaceful terms for many years. So I'd like to give a little background that I have with Bishop Dolan. I've known him since January of 1973. So we're coming up on, in January, 49 years of knowing each other, and I have interacted with him a great deal during those years. He was part of the same group of priests. He was in the Society of St. Pius X with me, and then we broke from that in 1983, and he was active in various ways in Cincinnati, and I interacted with him. I was on good terms with him. And then later on, in 1995, after his consecration, he and Father Cicada proposed to me, asked me to form a seminary, even though I had just written articles on the thesis and published them in a little magazine that we called Sacerdotium. So already I was professing this theory, this explanation of the situation in the church, which is commonly called the thesis of Bishop Gerard de Laurier. And he did not make objection to that. I knew that both he and Father Cicada did not accept it, but we have always considered it to be a theological explanation that in which we agreed to disagree about, that it was simply an explanation of how these Vatican II popes were not popes. We, of course, agreed that they were not popes. We agreed that they were false popes, whether we had no disagreement about that. The question is how. And this is quite normal in the church, where when things are not defined, there is a certain theological discussion about things. We all know the discussions that took place between the Jesuits and the Dominicans about the operations of grace. That's very famous. But Sixtus V, in the latter part of the 1500s, said you can't call each other heretics. You can discuss it all you want, but you can't call each other heretics, because it got very heated at the time. And but there are many other controverted issues in the history of the church. And we are not in a situation where we can appeal to the Holy Office or to some authoritative person in the church to say, please settle this. So therefore, we're on our own, and that's why the traditional movement has a lot of discussion in it about different issues that have come up, and there's no way to authoritatively resolve them. So we just have to be content to discuss them and to take our positions, and not to become enraged or excessively critical, or critical in a way that accuses your opponent of heresy or some sort of other evil thing that he's adhering to. You can discuss with people, you can point out their errors in a very nice way, presuming their good intentions. So the latest attack, and this is what motivated me to make this video, is what he said in his most recent Sunday bulletin. This would be for November 14th. He says in it, he says, Friday's St. Martin I suffered exile and a miserable death rather than accept the heresy of only one will in Christ. It sounds obscure to most, doubtless, but we must hold the whole Catholic faith without compromise. Now, listen to this. Even the best today want to make us believe that, bad though he be, Bergoglio is the validly elected pope, and that the Novus Ordo one world church is identical with the Catholic Church. That's a theological error and savors of heresy. All right, now the term savors of heresy is very serious. It is defined as a proposition which gives reason to fear that it contains a heresy. That's very serious. Heresy is a sin that is one of the worst that you could commit. It is worse than murder. It's worse than abortion, far worse. It is second only to hatred of God. It's very, very serious. It's worse than all of the sins of sensuality, the sins against nature, everything. It's worse. And to say that the seminary is holding something or the seminary faculty is holding an idea that savors of heresy is a very grave accusation, and I have to respond to that, and I'd like to do that today. So let me give you, first of all, let me correct what he says. The thesis of Gérard de Laurier does not say that Bergoglio is a validly elected pope. That's false. It's a false accusation. We say, the thesis says, that he is validly elected and is therefore a pope elect, but that he is not the pope. He is not a validly elected pope. Pope could never be said of him for as long as he is promulgating heresy. All right, so that's a very important thing. That is a very grave error in his Sunday bulletin. I want everyone to know that. We do not say that. Then he says that we say that the Novus Ordo one world church is identical with the Catholic Church. We do not say that. That's false. That's a false accusation. We do not say that. What we're saying is that these heretics in the hierarchy are unfortunately in possession of the what we call the material side of the church, which is its organizational side. It is something like thugs who have stolen your car or hijackers who have hijacked a plane. It's not, it is, they are using the very structures of the church in order to promote their heresy. That is the situation that we're in. So we're saying that they have not founded a new church, but they are using the structures of the church in order to promote their heresy. That is the precise problem. Because if they had said, we're founding the modernist Catholic Church, and they went and founded their own hierarchy and had their own church organizations, it would have fallen flat on its face, historically. We would never have heard of it. Because that's precisely what happened in 1871. The early modernists who were upset with the infallibility of the Pope that was defined in 1870, they went out and established something called the Old Catholic Church. And it fell flat on its face. There's hardly any adherence to it today. The thing was gone by the 1890s. Switzerland supported it. Bismarck, who hated the Catholic Church, supported it. But then it just fizzled out. And so the modernists under Pius X, when they were suppressed by Pius X, said to each other, and it's in their literature, I read it with my own eyes, it's in their literature, they say to each other, don't leave the church. Don't leave the church. We will have our day. We will be able to rise up in it and to positions of authority and change the church from within. That is the very problem, because in possession of this organizational structure, an illegitimate possession of it in the sense that they are heretics, they are able to use the prestige in the eyes of the world of the church falsely in order to promote their heresy. And that's why billions and billions of people have accepted the heresy of the Novus Ordo. That is how we explain the problem. Now, it needs much more explanation than that. And we will do that in future videos. But that's what our position is. Therefore, we're not saying that the Novus Ordo Church is the same as the Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, we do not admit the term Novus Ordo Church, because the Novus Ordo heretics did not form their own church. They are attempting to use the structures of the church for their own purposes, that is, ultimately to destroy it. We did not make this problem, but this is what we face. And everyone knows that that's the real and true explanation of it. That they are using something that doesn't really belong to them because they're heretics. They should be driven out of these structures. But unfortunately, just like thugs stealing your car, they're in it and using it. All right, so that's what I want to say. So, this is full of errors, what he said, and false accusations. And it shows that he does not understand the thesis. He is criticizing something that we just don't say. All right, so I just want to point that out. And in response to Bishop Dolan, I would like to ask him a few questions. First, when did the Novus Ordo Church begin? When was there a break of this Novus Ordo Church from the Catholic Church? Was it when John the 23rd was elected? Was it when Paul VI was elected? Was it when Paul VI promulgated the council? Was it when he promulgated the Novus Ordo Missae? Was it under John Paul II? When did it break? When was the organizational break? When did that take place? Number two, were you not part of the Novus Ordo Church, according to your theology? Were you not a Cistercian? I was. I was in a Novus Ordo seminary. I went to the Novus Ordo for years. I admit that. But were you not also part of it? Were you not ordained by a prelate who professed allegiance to Paul VI, referring to Archbishop Lefebvre? Were you not part of the Society of St. Pius X, which had as its stated purpose reconciliation with what you call the Novus Ordo Church? Were you not part of that? For years. And therefore, when did you make your public abjuration from this Novus Ordo Church? You say that it is a separate church from the Catholic Church. It is like the Lutheran Church, therefore, or the Episcopalian Church, which is legally separated as an organization from the Catholic Church. That's what you are accusing the Novus Ordites of being, a separate church. When did you make your abjuration from that? And when was the excommunication that you labored under lifted? And who lifted it? What person, what prelate, what priest, who was himself exempt of excommunication, lift your excommunication? When did that take place? Is there a document or is there a video of it? And you know as well as I do that it never took place. I never made such an abjuration. Did you? No. So, and who do you make your parishioners when they return from the Novus Ordo and join your parish? Do you make them kneel down in front of the altar with their hand upon sacred scripture and swear an abjuration? And do you lift the excommunication from them? Is that part of your routine, your sacramental practice in your church? You know that's not true. And who is in a position today to lift the excommunication of all the people, the priests and bishops who have not formally quit the church which you mention, this Novus Ordo Church? Who is in a position to do that? Who is not himself tainted by some connection to the Novus Ordo Church, which you say? Who? Is there anybody? Who is not excommunicated? Who is not who was not once part of this Novus Ordo Church? And regarding the thesis, did you not take part in an episcopal consecration on February 18th of 2018, in which you were a co-consecrator together with two other bishops who publicly professed the thesis? It was sometime in 2018. You were a co-consecrator with Bishop Stiver, who is of the IMBC, that is the Institute of the Mother of Good Counsel in Italy, who are very clear and have always been very clear about their position concerning the thesis. Everybody knows it. Were you not a co-consecrator, and was not the person being consecrated none other than Joseph Selway, who professed the thesis, and I was the consecrator professing the thesis? Did you not take part in that? If the thesis savors of heresy, why did you take part in that? And did you not ordain certain priests who profess the thesis? Did you not ordain priests for the Institute of Our Mother of Good Counsel in Italy? They profess the thesis. So why? You know the obvious answers to these questions. I don't have to tell you. My point is that Bishop Dolan's actions contradict his words. That he doesn't really think that there is a Novus Ordo Church. Otherwise, he would do all of these abjurations that I'm talking about. The thesis is implicitly proved by the fact that no clergy, no traditional clergy that I know of, require returning Novus Ordo people to make an abjuration of their heresy and to have the excommunication lifted. something that would be required of a Lutheran or an Episcopalian if he belonged, obviously, and does, to a false church. I don't know of anyone. The only one in the history of the whole traditional movement that required that was Schuckardt, the founder of the CMRI, who, as you know, was not exactly the most upstanding person in the history of the traditional movement. He required that, but nobody else ever required it, because they understand that implicitly that what the thesis is saying is true, that there is no foundation of a new church, but rather that the heretics are using the organizational aspect of the Catholic Church for their own purposes. That is the absolute quintessential problem. That's what we're dealing with. That is why there's so much confusion in the church. By the way, do you know that Nestorius was a public heretic on Christmas Day in 428? He was Patriarch of Constantinople. When he came to be judged in 431 at the Council of Ephesus, he was given all of the honors of being the Patriarch of Constantinople, the Archbishop of Constantinople. It was not until he was judged and sentenced that he was stripped of that honor. That's an example of the difference between being separated from the church in the eyes of God and in a spiritual way, because anyone who's a public heretic is separated from the church that way, and being separated from the church in a legal way. And those two things are distinct. Because you are separated from the church inside and in the eyes of God by your heresy, and because you have ruined the effects of baptism by heresy, doesn't mean that automatically you are excluded from the organizational aspect of the church. Why was it necessary, for example, that Pope Pius V excommunicate Elizabeth I? Because she was organizationally a Catholic. She was still considered a baptized Catholic. She had never been kicked out, and she needed to be kicked out. And he did that over the objections of many clergy, because it was a scandal that she could go on for so long supposedly being a Catholic, and in a legal sense a Catholic, and at the same time repudiating the Catholic faith. But nonetheless, he did it because it had to be done. Those are examples of the thesis. And the same is true of if the Novus Ordo is a different church, as you say, a Novus Ordo church, if it is the same as the Lutheran church or the Episcopalian church, then you need to do those abjurations, but you can't do them because you're also excommunicated. So I would ask Bishop Dolan to quit making trouble, to stop lashing out at fellow priests. We had peace for 25 years since I opened the seminary. You came down here for retreats all the time. We were with Father Cicada. Father Cicada came down once a month. We were all at peace. And the lay people were so happy to see us at peace. And now you're making all kinds of trouble. And I don't understand why you're making trouble, and I wish you would stop. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Your Excellency.